AI is showing up in every part of our lives right now, but nowhere feels more personal than inside our classrooms. Teachers are trying to protect learning, school leaders are trying to protect students, and everyone else is being asked to move fast without breaking trust. So today I've invited the Chief Innovation Strategist for Education at Lenovo to join me on the podcast. She's someone that has spent more than 25 years inside K-12 systems, and now she works with districts across the US on one of the biggest questions in modern education. How do they integrate AI responsibly and effectively in their schools and learning institutions? Well, today we will talk about what AI literacy, what that actually means inside real schools, why infrastructure and cybersecurity matter equally as much as any classroom policy, and how AI-ready devices and intelligent infrastructure can actually support teaching and learning without turning the classroom into some kind of tech experiment. So if you work in this field, I'm hoping we're going to have lots of valuable takeaways for you. I'd love to connect with anybody listening in this space and hear your thoughts, your experience on what you're seeing. But right now, let me introduce you to my guest. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Thank you so much, Neil. It is great to be here. I am Dr. Tara Nattrass, and I serve as Chief Innovation Strategist for Education at Lenovo. I have spent over 25 years focusing on reinventing schools and classrooms, including my own, with much of that time teaching and leading in school districts as a building leader and district administrator, including most recently as the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning in Arlington Public Schools in Virginia. Today, in my role at Lenovo, I have the opportunity to work with K-12 educators and leaders, state departments of ed, global institutions and organizations, as we really help to build transformational learning experiences and what we call future-ready learning ecosystems, really focusing on strong professional learning, reimagining teacher roles and responsibilities, trusted technology, and what we're all talking about currently, a responsible approach to AI. So I really get to spend my time supporting schools in taking practical and really sustainable actions to make learning awesome.
Sounds incredibly cool. And there's a lot I want to talk with you about today around future-ready learning ecosystems and responsible approaches to AI. But before we do, I've got to go back to your origin story, because you're someone that spent, more than 2 decades inside school districts, way before joining Lenovo. So from your perspective, what has changed most in the last 18 months when it comes to AI or technology entering the K-12 classroom?
AI has been present in education for many years. When we think about the last decade or so, we've seen adaptive software and analytics coming into our classrooms in a variety of ways. I think the shift, as we all know, over the last several years, has really been generative AI tools and now agentic AI tools coming into the classroom with powerful capabilities and with immediacy, right? It went directly into the hands of teachers and students. And because of those capabilities and the immediate access, we're actually still working through some of those changes. And what we're seeing a lot of with the generative and agentic AI conversations is really deeper conversation about the purpose of education, the skills and attributes that are most essential for our students as they navigate this connected world, and opportunities to build more accessible and inclusive learning experiences. We are also seeing deeper conversations around things like academic integrity, digital citizenship, workforce readiness, and the importance of relationships and human connection within the classroom. And I will say beyond these conversations about education more broadly, we're seeing a shift from initial conversations around using AI, particularly generative AI, for efficiencies in teaching and learning and operations, and the conversation around specific tools, to one really around how we strengthen AI literacy and begin to focus on the needed shifts to curriculum and instruction. And what that looks like is really understanding the ways in which AI is used in industries, whether that's biotech, aviation, law, technology, or otherwise, and going beyond the kind of chatbot conversation that we're seeing into authentic use cases. It means then, instead of asking students to write a 5-paragraph essay on the causes of local housing affordability challenges, we might ask them to investigate root causes, analyze impact, model budget implications, and potentially use AI to help them with brainstorming, summarizing zoning codes and ordinances. The conversation has quickly evolved from one around efficiency in tools and whether or not we engage in AI to really how we do so responsibly and strategically. Those changes are still happening, but that's some of what we're seeing over the last couple of years.
Yeah, there's so much going on at the moment, and we've seen many districts in investing in AI tools and professional development. But I'm curious, from everything you're seeing out there and the kind of conversations you're having with so many different areas, how often do you see a mismatch between that ambition that everybody's chasing and where they want to get to and the actual infrastructure readiness? Because there seems to be a mismatch in large enterprises and medium-sized enterprises I've seen. But in education, is it a similar story too?
I think so. We are sometimes seeing a mismatch between the ambition and the vision that folks are having and that infrastructure readiness, because there's been such an emphasis, and rightfully so, on guidelines and guardrails and the ways in which to bring AI safely and responsibly into the classroom, that now there is this focus on what do we need to consider around the deployment of AI-powered platforms and considering that need for AI-ready devices with the sufficient processing power needed, reliable connectivity, scalable infrastructure, and the robust cybersecurity frameworks that are needed. Therefore, we are partnering with districts to better understand that vision so that we can address that mismatch. We're thinking through how the infrastructure might help them make their vision a reality, including a lot of conversations right now around hybrid AI. What might personal, enterprise, and public AI look like within their ecosystems? And I mentioned earlier, as we're thinking about these changes with AI in the classroom, that we have more opportunities to have accessible and inclusive environments that weren't possible before. When we think about what that looks like, it might include using AI tools that capture voice, that capture video of students and teachers potentially. And when that occurs, one of the major infrastructure conversations that we're having is the need to really consider where the data is stored, who has access to it, and how it's used. And so these are the conversations we're having with education leaders, because when districts align the infrastructure planning with the instructional vision, for example, to create more accessible and inclusive environments, they're far more likely to see a sustainable impact that prioritizes safety and security rather than some of the short-term pilots that may struggle to scale.
And when we're talking around AI-ready devices and intelligent infrastructure as the foundation of connected classrooms, one of the things I always try and do on this podcast is bring it to life with real-world examples and demystify a lot of the technology and infrastructure that's required. So when we look at everything we're talking about here, what does that look like in a practical day-to-day terms for a teacher that's probably listening after standing in front of 30 students earlier today?
Yeah, I think a big piece to this is understanding the different areas in which AI may impact education. So there is what we call teaching with AI, where teachers are using AI to support them within their work to do things like create relevant content and lesson resources, adapt student materials so that they have more time to focus on relationships and creating those high value instructional materials. There's also the teaching with AI where teachers are bringing those AI tools and AI literacy into the classroom to strengthen student outcomes. And that means that students have access to the tools that help them strengthen their understanding of content. They use AI in ways that they're going to use it in the world of work. And they have the AI literacy to critically evaluate the benefits, risks, and implications. It also means they have access to tutoring tools and resources that further support them in their learning. And so our goal is to make sure that as the teaching with and about AI is happening in classrooms, that it feels really invisible and supportive rather than overly technical and complicated. Some teachers hear AI and immediately think about the technical complexities. What we really think about is making sure that the devices run AI-powered applications smoothly so that we're not slowing down learning experiences, that the connectivity is consistent across and beyond the classroom, and that the student data is protected. Because then we can do all of the examples that I shared earlier because technology is a reliable partner that's seamlessly integrated rather than an obstacle that disrupts learning.
And another phrase that I'm hearing more and more is AI literacy. It's being used incredibly widely right now, but it can mean different things to educators, students, and indeed IT leaders. So how do you define AI literacy in a way that is realistic and measurable for K-12 environments?
There are several AI literacy frameworks that have recently been developed to address this exact issue and to support educators, students, and IT leaders in bringing these concepts into our K-12 environments. One of which was developed by the OECD and European Commission with support from Code.org and a broader international team. And I think their definition really helps make this very practical and realistic for educators. And their definition really focuses on three key areas that are essential to this conversation. The first is, yes, the technical knowledge that we often hear about when we are thinking about AI literacy. And that technical knowledge includes things like understanding that AI reflects human choices and perspectives, its capabilities and limitations. But this definition goes beyond the technical knowledge to also focus on durable skills, things like critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, problem solving, and future-ready attitudes. And so it takes the definition of AI literacy beyond the technical knowledge to get at durable skills and also the future-ready attitudes. What is also apparent in this definition is the moving beyond the consumption of AI to really engaging, creating, and designing with AI. And we saw that actually in a district last night where I was at an event and students were using AI to solve problems of practice within their communities. And they had designed with AI and actually created their own AI tools that could do things like decipher bias in media, to find resources within the community if you are looking for medical care or you are looking for access to another resource, they've built an app that can help support that. Also building apps to strengthen tutoring. And so if you look at that definition from the OECD and European Commission, it's about knowledge, it's about engaging, managing, and designing with, and it's also finally about critically evaluating the benefits, risks, and implications. I think the biggest piece to the AI literacy conversation is that we are going beyond computer science, and we're also looking at this across grade levels, including exploring many of the activities related to AI literacy offline. We don't necessarily have to have elementary students using generative AI tools to build their AI literacy skills. And then finally, as educators and districts are looking to, how do I actually do this? What does it look like within the classroom? Lenovo has partnered with ISTE and ASCD, Microsoft, and Intel to develop the AI Innovator Studio, which provides lessons for high school students that align with the AI literacy framework, both the OECD and European Commission one, as well as others. And so there are multiple opportunities to really build AI literacy across content areas and grade levels.
And at the very beginning of our conversation, you talked about your passion for building the right approach to responsible AI. And I think many schools out there now, they're under pressure to innovate, not get left behind, yet they're also challenged with being the guardians of student data and digital safety, which is obviously incredibly important. So how can districts strike that right balance between experimentation and innovation and privacy protection? Quite a tricky balance, I would imagine.
Yeah, that balance is really essential. And first, it really means that school districts are ensuring privacy, safety, and security are the core principles of their AI frameworks and guidelines, as well as a core piece of their professional learning. Because without that focus, innovation becomes a challenge. And so organizations such as the EdSafe AI Alliance, as well as state-level guidance documents, COSIN's AI maturity tool, can be referenced to really help districts in considering what that balance looks like. For example, the Massachusetts AI guidelines that were recently published include core principles for AI use. And the core principles first focus on data privacy and security and transparency and accountability before then addressing things like bias awareness and mitigation, human oversight, and academic integrity, because those are essential. And so that AI innovation must also be paired with comprehensive cyber strategies, clear governance policies, and working with trusted technology partners who prioritize that end-to-end security. And finally, these and other strategies need to be developed in conjunction with families, students, educators, and industry partners, and then clearly communicated to support that innovation and student safety so that they're advancing together and we maintain the trust of our families and communities.
And for people listening, or many people listening, they'll think of Lenovo as a leading PC manufacturer. But one of the reasons I was excited to get you on the podcast and speak with you today is that this conversation that we're having right now, it goes far beyond hardware. So how are you at Lenovo positioning things like AI PCs, but also intelligent infrastructure as part of a broader education strategy rather than just simply a device refresh cycle? Because it's so much bigger than that, isn't it?
It is much bigger than that. And because of that, we approach education as an ecosystem, not a hardware cycle. And so while we are, as you referenced, the number one OEM in the education technology market, our focus is really on enabling transformation. And we do that through AI-ready PCs, powerful workstations, edge computing solutions, and embedded cybersecurity. And so we are partnering with districts to support their AI implementation goals. districts are really, as I said earlier, starting to shift beyond the efficiency and tools conversation to consider the ways in which AI can support them in addressing specific problems of practice. It might be something like increasing a counselor's time with students, to analyzing massive data sets to make decisions, to strengthening efficiencies in transportation or child nutrition or other areas. And so we are partnering with districts to brainstorm and design hybrid AI models that hit the PCs, edge computing, cybersecurity, that can really help them in meeting their goals. Because we know that it takes an entire ecosystem to really help create the kinds of transformation that they really want to see. And in addition to some of those hybrid AI conversations, we are also supporting and investing in AI literacy initiatives and partnerships that support educators and students as they're building responsible AI competencies. We serve on the EdSafe AI Alliance Industry Council, the Teach AI Advisory Committee, and we partner with organizations such as ISTE and ASCD to create programs such as the AI Innovator Studio that I mentioned earlier. And so we really do take a comprehensive approach to what this work looks like, particularly as we're trying to balance, as we talked about earlier, innovation and security.
And as someone who has worked with state departments of education and numerous AI task forces, I'm curious, from everything that you've seen here, where are policymakers getting it right? And where do you think there is still a certain amount of confusion or risk in how that AI guidance is being shaped? Because I feel like you've got somewhat of a unique vantage point here.
Mm-hmm. Policymakers are really getting it right because of the continued emphasis on ethical use, equity, and workforce alignment. And as they're convening AI task forces, they're bringing together not only educators, but also technologists, community leaders, and industry partners to really build an understanding to make informed decisions. Generative and agentic AI, and particularly bringing generative and agentic AI into our classrooms, is new for many educators, for most educators. And so we need to bring together all of those community partners that I just talked about to build everyone's understanding to make informed decisions. There is a growing recognition that AI is shaping both teaching and the future economy, and policy makers and educators are coming together to really figure out what that looks like moving forward. For example, Lenovo just worked with a broader team on the recently released paper, Safe by Design, and it focuses on policy research and practice recommendations for AI companions in education. And the thing that we got right with that particular paper was that it was developed by a diverse group and also includes policy recommendations for policymakers. I think the piece that we need to really continue to focus on is that as guidance is developed, it is paired with high quality professional learning and concrete examples of what that guidance looks like, and making sure that we are, as we've talked about previously, focusing on some of the infrastructure requirements, long-term funding models, and the ways in which AI may influence things like assessment and accountability systems. Because if the guidance itself focuses only on restricting the tools without addressing readiness and educator support, policymakers and districts may struggle to implement AI in really meaningful and sustainable ways.
And technology is changing our world at such a rapid pace right now. And every 6 to 12 months, we're seeing massive changes from generative AI to agentic AI and custom agents this year. And I think all these things make it incredibly difficult to make any meaningful predictions. But if I did ask you to look into my virtual crystal ball for a minute at maybe 3 or even 5 years ahead, what do you think will separate school systems that truly benefit from AI and those that are simply layering new tools on top of old teaching models? Anything you think could happen here?
If only we had that crystal ball, Neil. If only. But I think the systems that are going to benefit from this moment are those that are not centering the conversation on tools, but are really starting first with their vision, whether that's a vision for teaching and learning or operations. And they're really clear on the changes that need to be made to our current models of school. They're asking themselves, how are we using this moment to create more flexible and adaptable environments for our students? They're asking how we're using this moment to build transformational learning experiences for our students. They are the educators and leaders who are redesigning assessment and learning experiences to reflect the realities of an AI-enabled world. They're rethinking how we prepare students for evolving careers. They're focusing on durable skills and competency-based learning and the relationships and community that are really essential within our schools. They're then integrating AI into that strategy and culture and instructional design rather than, as you said, treating it as an add-on. They're investing in AI-ready infrastructure. They're prioritizing cybersecurity and data governance, and they're committing to continuous educator upskilling. And that's a lot. And so making sure that they are partnering with a variety of organizations to help make that possible matters. It really is essential that we meet this moment and that we're not simply layering tools onto traditional models without rethinking some of the awesome possibilities that we have to reimagine school and better meet the needs of all of our students and the deeper education transformation that AI can make possible.
Wow, so many big takeaways there. And for anybody listening that are interested in learning more about how Lenovo is helping schools navigate one of the biggest shifts in modern education and how to integrate AI in the classroom, both responsibly and effectively, where would you like to point everyone? Where can they find out more information?
Yeah. Lenovo Education provides the partnership and the trusted technology solutions to help transform learning ecosystems across the globe. You can learn more about Lenovo Education at lenovo.com. You can get information on the AI Innovator Studio that I mentioned that we are doing with ISTE and ASCD, Microsoft and Intel on the ISTE and ASCD website. Just go to AI Innovator. And you can find me on LinkedIn to connect and continue to engage in this really essential and important conversation.
Well, we can only cover so much in a 30-minute podcast episode, but we did cram a lot of things in there, from AI PCs and intelligent infrastructure, how they're becoming the foundation of connected, cloud-enabled classrooms that enhance both teaching and learning. So many big takeaways. I will leave links to everything that you mentioned. I would encourage anybody working in this space wanting to explore how AI-ready devices could change their daily classroom workflows for both their teachers and students. Please visit those links. Also, feedback to me. Let me know your thoughts on anything we talked about today, what you're seeing, how you're achieving that balance between innovation, privacy, and inclusion in digital learning. But more than anything, just a big thank you for starting this conversation today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Neil.
I think one of the many things I appreciated about this conversation today is just how practical it is. Tara kept bringing it back to the reality of classrooms, teacher workloads, student inclusion, and the hard trade-offs around privacy and data. And she also made a very strong case why schools that benefit most over the next few years will be the ones that start with that clear vision, then invest in professional learning and treat AI as part of an education ecosystem and begin to think bigger than just another quick hardware device refresh. It's so much bigger than that. So I will share links in the show notes to Lenovo Education, the AI Innovator Studio and Tara's LinkedIn. But I'd love to hear from you too. What does responsible AI in the classroom look like where you live? And I know you're all out there in 160 plus countries, so I want to hear from you and what support your teachers actually need to make it work. Please drop by techtalksnetwork.com. There's loads of ways you can get hold of me there and also browse through 4,000 other interviews. But thank you to Tara for bringing this topic to life today, and thank you for joining me. Hopefully you can find time to join me again tomorrow. We'll do it all again with a different guest and a different industry. And I'll speak with you then. Bye for now.